Hello, I'm doing a movie review, and the movie I want to review is actually a film that I've heard about for a number of years, but only recently did I actually see the film. I actually first saw the film over the summer, and of course I recently rewatched it in preparation for this review, but this review is on the 1988 cult classic Maniac Cop. Now, Maniac Cop is directed by William Lustig, and the film is written by Larry Cohen. Now, Larry Cohen is perhaps most famous as the writer and director of the It's Alive trilogy. He also wrote and directed the 1973 blaxploitation film Black Caesar, and its sequel, Hell Up in Harlem. He also directed the film God Told Me To. He also wrote and directed movies like The Stuff, Q the Winged Serpent, and he also directed the 1987 film A Return to Salem's Lot, which was a sequel to the Tobe Hooper film, which was based on the Stephen King novel. He also co-wrote the Abel Ferrara adaptation of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and he also wrote the Joel Schumacher film Phone Booth. Now, William Lustig, the director of this movie, prior to this also directed the controversial 1980 film Maniac. Now, this movie actually kind of came about because of William Lustig's film Maniac. One day Larry Cohen asked him how come he never made a sequel to Maniac, and that sort of gave them both the idea to do a movie about a maniac cop. So, in a way, you could almost look at this movie as being sort of a spiritual sequel to Maniac. Now, the plot of Maniac Cop is it's about a serial killer terrorizing New York City, and it appears that this killer is actually a cop, or at the very least, an ex-police officer, which creates a general sense of panic among the people of New York City, and it creates a public distrust of the police. And because of this killer, there are people actually killing police officers thinking that they're the Maniac Cop. So the NYPD is desperate to catch this killer. And in the movie, this young police officer named Jack Forrest ends up being the prime suspect because his wife was murdered and they found his wife's diary, and they were already having like marriage problems, and his wife actually thought that he was the Maniac Cop. So, once again, he ends up being the prime suspect, but you also get the idea that the police just really want a fall guy at this point. And in the movie, this detective named McCrae is trying to figure out the truth behind these killings, and eventually it's revealed that these murders are actually being committed by an ex-police officer who is believed to be dead, named Matt Cordell. In the movie, you find out that Matt Cordell was a good cop, but he was sort of one of those shoot first and ask questions later kind of cops, and he was sort of screwed over by the system, and these corrupt politicians had him sent to jail. And while he was in jail, he was attacked by some of the men that he put away, and they severely beat him and cut him up, and it was believed that he actually died from the attack, but it turns out he somehow lived, and now he's out for revenge against the system that screwed him over. And he's out killing innocent people as a cop to sort of discredit the police. So, in the movie, Forrest and McCree and this female police officer that Forrest was having an affair with have to prove that Matt Cordell is still alive and is killing people before it's too late. And that's the basic plotline of Maniac Cop. Now, in the movie, Detective McCree is played by Tom Atkins, who most people would remember from Lethal Weapon and Halloween 3 and Night of the Creeps and Creepshow and The Fog. And honestly, his character was actually my favorite character in the whole movie, which is why it's kind of a disappointment what ended up happening to his character, but I really loved Tom Atkins in this movie, and once again, the character of Frank McCree is probably my favorite character in the whole film. And in the movie, it's very much implied that he tried to kill himself in the past, so you could tell that these things that he's seen as a detective have really sort sort of gotten to him. And there's this really funny moment in the movie where the police commissioner is telling him that he doesn't smile enough, and he gives this, like, creepy-ass smile as sort of a way to tell the commissioner to fuck off. It's a really funny moment in the movie, but I really loved Tom Atkins' character in this film. In the movie, Bruce Campbell, who most people would probably recognize as Ash from the Evil Dead movies, he plays the character of Jack Forrest, who is a very likable character, but he's also a really flawed character as well. Like, you have the scene where he's caught cheating by his wife, and this is of course before his wife ends up getting murdered, but you could tell that he's genuinely sorry about what he's doing. Like, yes, he's a douchebag for cheating on his wife. At the same time, you could tell that he knows he fucked up, and that's what I really liked about his character, was he was a likable character, but he was also a very flawed character as well. And then you had Lauren Landon as the character of Teresa Mallory, and she does do a really good job in this movie as well. In the movie, Robert Sidar plays the character of Matt Cordell, who is the villain of the movie, and Matt Cordell is a really interesting character because he is a sympathetic character to a certain extent. Like, you realize that he was screwed over by the very system that he was working for, so you do feel for him to a certain extent, but where you start to lose sympathy for him is when he starts killing innocent people. So it's like, you can't really get behind what he's doing. At the same time, you sort of see what drove him to become the monster that you see in the film. Now, in the movie, it seems most likely that Matt Cordell survived his attack in prison and was only assumed to be dead, and he just somehow lived through all that. At the same time, there is a level of ambiguity to it where it almost implies that there might be something supernatural going on, because there are scenes in the movie where you see him get shot and it does nothing to him. So it almost implies that maybe he really did die, but maybe he's actually a zombie or a ghost in this movie. Now, the sequels would make it outright supernatural, but in this one, it's sort of left open to the viewer's interpretation whether it's supernatural or if he's just fucking crazy. In the movie, William Smith plays the police captain, Captain Ripley, and his character is such a douchebag in this movie. In the movie, Richard Roundtree plays the police commissioner, and his character is also a douchebag as well. In the film, William Lustig, who directed this movie, has a brief cameo appearance as the motel manager. Also, Sam Raimi has a brief cameo appearance in this film as a TV reporter. But yeah, Maniac Cop is a really fun movie, and I really love how the film is both a horror film, but also an action movie, and it also has elements of crime drama, and also some black comedy elements as well. Like, there are a lot of really darkly comedic moments in this movie. Like, there's a scene in the movie where Matt Cordell drowns this guy in wet cement, and then it cuts to the next day, and you see them using jackhammers to try to get this guy's body out of the cement, and it's a really funny scene. Like, it's a scene that's simultaneously horrifying and hilarious at the same time. But yeah, I definitely recommend Maniac Cop. I think it's a really good movie, and this movie spawned two sequels, Maniac Cop 2, which came out in 1990, and Maniac Cop 3, which came out in 1993. And yeah, that was my review on Maniac Cop, and my next movie review will be on Maniac Cop 2.